Hello, this is Cybersecurity and Supply Chains by Jeffrey Vogt. So first we have what is the future trend. So the notable SolarWinds attack that shook the industry in 2020 showed how a software supply chain breach can impact over 18,000 companies. The attacker uploaded a malicious DL file after obtaining access to the SolarWinds build system, Orion, and distributed it to its customers. The infected file enabled the remote access and went unnoticed for more than 6 months. So, this code created a backdoor to customer information technology systems, which hackers then used to install even more vicious data, and that helped them spy on companies and organizations. Some private companies that you might recognize are FireEye, Microsoft, Intel, Cisco, and Deloitte. Some government agencies you might have heard of that were affected were Homeland Security, NASA, and national security. So, a study by Oregon Security showed that the supply chain attacks have grown up to 300% in 2021 compared to 2020 and will continue to rise in 2023. So, according to a McKinsey survey of supply chain executives, 93% say they're taking steps to make their supply chain more resilient. A recent report from NCC Group found that supply chain cyber attacks increased by 51% between July and December of 2021. So we could see that the trend of cyber attacks are increasing in the bottom right graph, and on the top right we could see the timeline of the SolarWinds attack. September 4th, 2019, attackers first accessed SolarWinds. February 2020, attackers insert backdoor into Orion software update. March-April to 2020, victims unknowingly download malicious software. And then in May 2020, the follow-up attacks on selected victims began. And then December 12th is when the attacks were disclosed. So a 2-year attack on all these huge companies. Any companies involved in the future technology slash process slash concept. So one of the events that happened was one of the most craziest data breaches in retail history. So they targeted Target. This is a major US retailer. You've probably heard of it, but what they did was they installed malware that infected the Target's POS system across 1,800 shops. This included 40 million customer credit and debit cards to become vulnerable. So as a result of this, Target more than doubled the size of the team by hiring hundreds of individuals with experience in retail, financial services, defense, and government. Additionally, they established new capabilities that allowed them to monitor and protect the business against threats 24/7 and moved all essential cybersecurity tasks in-house. So Accenture made a strategic investment in Enteros, and this is a company that utilizes AI learning to monitor international business ties and identify risks. So Enteros, they specialize in operational resilience and supply chain risk management. So a wide range of supply chain issues are tracked and analyzed in real time by this platform using AI, machine learning, and this is across many risk categories, including financial, operational, governance, geographic, and cybersecurity. More companies that are involved. So, a little background on the pricing. The complexity of safeguarding digital systems has risen tremendously as more data is being accessible from more locations than ever because of cloud. As a result of this, there is a strong and expanding market for security services, which may continue to drive up the price of cybersecurity. So, in recent news, Microsoft and Google together invested 5 million in a new project to improve software supply chain and security for 10,000 open source projects. AWS also invested an additional 10 million in open source supply chain security. Then we have an example of what might be in the supply chain security. Amazon Fraud Detector is a fully managed service that makes it easy to identify potentially fraudulent online activities such as online payment fraud and the creation of fake accounts. And this is all done through AI bots. They use your address, they use your IP address, all of that history under the IP or address, and they make sure that it's not fraud. So it's kind of how they're making sure things are all right between vendors. benefits: cybersecurity can prevent unnecessary costs, inefficient delivery schedules, malware attacks, breaches, leaks, supplier fraud, and loss of intellectual property. So an example I gave where there was cybersecurity, cargo theft continues to plague the supply chain, and experts say cyber attacks are, as a tactic, are becoming more prevalent. Cyber attacks that result in cargo theft were previously observed on the West Coast, according to intelligence and response manager at Overhaul, but they have recently started to spread east. So Overhaul is a supplier of security risk management and supply chain visibility and has prevented the loss of cargo worth over 226 million. Strategic cargo theft involves the use of fraud to trick shippers, brokers, and carriers into giving away loads to cargo thieves. Few drawbacks. So although these companies are great at competing against cybersecurity, at the same time these cyber companies can get hacked and lose other companies' intellectual property. So for years, companies and government organizations from all over the world that have been hacked by the most skilled attackers turn to the cybersecurity firm FireEye as their first point of call. So according to FireEye, a nation with top-tier offensive capabilities breached its own networks. This was something that happened like an event, and the corporation claimed that hackers stole its own toolkit using novel techniques which might be used to launch fresh attacks around the globe. So, due in part to the fact that the technologies maintain extensive levels of access to corporate and government clients worldwide, security businesses have been a common target for nation states and hackers. Spyware and hackers can access systems of their targets by breaking into those tools and stealing the source code. So, here's kind of like an example of a menu that has different options you could pick with the different source codes that I'm guessing are different tools. So impact on financial result, environment, and society. So a supply chain attack aims to infiltrate and disrupt a weak point of a system within an organization's supply chain to cause significant operational, financial, and reputational damages. These cyber threats are becoming more severe. So, a May 22 report published by Accenture found that supply chain disruptions have led to a loss of 112 billion euros in the Eurozone alone. So, that's the impact on financial. Cybersecurity can save businesses a significant amount of money, help protect their reputation, and avoid the costs associated with data breaches such as regulatory fines, litigation, and customer loss. Then we have the social impact of cybersecurity failures can cause lasting damages to customers, employees, and your company. 2 out of 3 Americans said they were worried about their information being breached during the 2020 holiday season. Sorry. So, and that was kind of the impact on how society feels on cybersecurity. And we have 66% of attacks are focused on supplier code, 58% of attacks aim to access data, 62% of attacks exploit the trust of customers and their suppliers, and 62% of attacks are rely on malware. So here is address implementation challenges across supply chains. So we have protocols, rules, employee education, physical security measures, and warehouse surveillance, which are just a few of the different elements and methods used for tackling cybersecurity. So, first off, we went with an example of the significant hack SolarWinds experience in late 2020 earlier. That was attributed to a compromise of credentials and or access through a third-party application. In that example, an employee was the cause of the entire compromise. So, according to the 2022 DBIR, a human factor is involved in 82% of breaches. So, people continue to play a huge part in events and breaches alike, whether it's through the use of stolen credentials, phishing, misuse, or just an error. So, kind of like where we're going with the cost, with 2.5 million in yearly IT spending. If you're a company of that size, businesses spend 250,000 on cybersecurity solutions and training. For effective cybersecurity defense, a corporation must spend 2,500 and 2,800 for each full-time employee. So, like I said earlier, some of the problems were that employee education. You have to train them to know to find these phishing errors or these malware breaches. And then second is the cost. So those are the two implementation challenges across the supply chains when trying to implement it. And here are my sources, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.